The cable sitting next to your phone right now contains a computer chip. It runs firmware. It negotiates electricity like a conversation between two people deciding how much to share. And the most powerful version of it can run a desktop workstation, blast 4K video to two screens simultaneously, and transfer a full HD movie in under a second, all through one tiny oval port. It's called USB-C. And what it actually does goes so far beyond charging that the engineers who built it called it the last cable humanity would ever need. But here's what the story never tells you. One of the world's most powerful companies spent 13 years and billions of dollars trying to stop it from reaching your hands. And they almost won. To understand why USB-C matters, you have to go back to the 1990s. The back of a computer looked like a control panel from a science fiction film. There was a serial port for the mouse, a parallel port for the printer, a game port for the joystick. None of them worked with each other, and every single one required a full computer restart just to connect a new device. Then came USB, one plug for everything. For a moment, it felt like the future had arrived. But as phones got smaller and cameras got thinner, that big rectangular plug didn't fit anymore. So engineers panicked. They shrunk it, then shrunk it again, then created entirely new shapes for different devices. And by 2013, instead of one universal cable, there were 7. The dream was dead, but someone was already building the replacement. Here's how bad it actually got. Your phone used micro USB. Your camera used mini USB. Your printer used the square type B. Your external hard drive used a double-headed connector that looked like it was designed by someone who had never seen a cable before. And every single one of those cables was single-use. Drop your phone in water, buy a new phone, buy a new cable. Get a new laptop, throw away the old charger. Upgrade your camera, the old cable is now useless. In Europe alone, consumers were throwing away 11,000 tons of chargers and cables every single year. And globally, the United Nations estimated 53 million metric tons of electronic waste annually. A significant portion of it, tangled in drawers, buried in landfills, burned in open fires in Ghana and Nigeria by workers extracting copper just to survive. The drawer of doom had a body count. By 2012, Apple, Intel, Microsoft, and HP had seen enough. They went back to the drawing board together. Not to improve the existing cable, to replace it permanently. In 2014, they unveiled USB Type-C. At first glance, it looks like a slightly rounder micro USB. Unremarkable, almost boring. But inside that tiny oval connector are 24 pins. Old USB cables had 4. Those extra pins changed everything. The connector is perfectly symmetrical. The pins mirror each other on both sides. This is why there is no wrong way to plug it in. The cable detects its own orientation electronically and reroutes the signal in milliseconds. But the symmetry is almost the least interesting thing about it. Those 24 pins unlocked something engineers called alternate mode. And alternate mode turned a charging cable into something else entirely. What exactly? That's where it gets strange. Alternate mode means those extra pins can carry completely different signals depending on what you plug in. Connect it to a monitor, and it becomes an HDMI cable. One USB-C port can drive 2 4K screens at 60 frames per second simultaneously, while charging your laptop and transferring files at the same time. Connect it to a Thunderbolt 4 device, and it hits 40 gigabits per second, fast enough to move a full HD movie in under a second. But the real shock is the power delivery system. Old USB pushed 2.5 watts, barely enough to trickle charge a phone overnight. USB-C power delivery negotiates. The charger asks the device how much power it can handle. Headphones get a trickle. A high-end gaming laptop gets 240 watts. That is more power than most home appliances draw, through a cable thinner than your finger. So if USB-C was this powerful, why did the most popular phone on the planet refuse to use it for nearly a decade? Apple actually invented USB-C. They were the first company to ship it on a laptop, the 2015 MacBook. They built the standard. They helped write the rules. And then they looked at their phones and said no. Here's why. Apple's Lightning port wasn't just a connector. It was a business. Every company that wanted to make a Lightning accessory, a cable, a dock, a speaker, had to pay Apple a licensing fee of roughly $4 per device through their M5 program. Multiply that by billions of accessories sold globally. That is a revenue stream worth protecting at almost any cost. USB-C would have handed that money back to consumers and competitors. Apple wasn't ready to let go. The fight to force USB-C onto every device didn't start in a courtroom. It started in 2009. The European Commission looked at the cable chaos, looked at the mountains of e-waste, and proposed a simple rule: one common charger for all portable electronics. Apple lobbied against it for 13 years. Their official argument was that mandating a connector would stifle innovation and hurt consumers. A fascinating position for the company that invented the connector being mandated. Meanwhile, China was moving independently, pushing its own USB-C regulations. Apple now faced coordinated pressure from two of its largest markets simultaneously. In 2022, the EU passed the law. By end of 2024, all portable electronics sold in Europe had to use USB-C. Apple had one option: comply or exit one of the world's most valuable consumer markets. With the iPhone 15, Lightning was gone. So USB-C won. Universal cable, clean drawers, one port for everything. Except there is a trap almost nobody talks about. Not all USB-C cables are the same. A cheap cable bought at a petrol station and a Thunderbolt 4 certified cable look physically identical. Same oval shape, same size. They fit the same port, but internally they are completely different products. The cheap cable might charge your phone slowly and do nothing else. The certified cable runs dual 4K monitors, transfers files at 40 gigabits, and carries 240 watts of power. And here is the part that should concern you. High-end USB-C cables contain an embedded authentication chip running actual firmware inside the connector head. Your cable has a processor. Most people buy cables with zero awareness of this. There is currently no clear mandatory labeling that tells consumers what any given cable can actually do. The chaos didn't disappear. It just got smaller. USB-C is no longer just a phone charger. It is showing up in commercial aircraft seat consoles, hospital equipment, electric vehicles. It is becoming the data and power backbone of physical infrastructure. And the standard is still evolving. USB 4, deliberately written without a space, launched in 2019 and now hits 80 gigabits per second in its latest version. It merges USB and Thunderbolt into a single unified standard. The finish line keeps moving. What started as a fix for a messy drawer is quietly becoming one of the most consequential technology standards in modern history. Not because of what it charges, because of what it connects. One port is now capable of replacing power cables, display cables, data cables, and audio cables simultaneously across every category of device humans use daily. And most people still think it's just a charger. Here is the part the cable companies do not advertise. USB 4 at 80 gigabits per second is fast enough to run external graphics cards. Gaming laptops are already shipping with eGPU support through a single USB-C port. The line between a portable device and a desktop workstation is dissolving. One cable, one port, and the performance gap between mobile and desktop computing closes to almost nothing. But there is a version of this story that goes even further. Researchers are already testing wireless power delivery standards that would make even the cable itself unnecessary. The port would remain. The cable disappears. USB-C may have won the cable war. But the war it just started, over how power and data move through every object humans interact with daily. That one is only just beginning.